To have in studio with us Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury. Morning, sir. How you doing?
How are you?
Good to see you. Second time in the couple 3 days. You were looking good at the parade.
Oh, thank you.
It was a
good
lot
time.
of fun.
It was a great time at the parade.
We have you on here weekly to talk about some things. We heard some new crime statistics from the Mason County Sheriff's Office on the Twitter page earlier today, so we can go over those. But what are some other things that you'd like to mention this morning?
Well, I've heard it mentioned a lot on the radio, but we still are already getting calls about the Cascadia Rising, and that's going to be a really big deal this week. And just be reminded, there's nothing wrong. It's a training exercise, perhaps one of the largest ones the state's ever put on, and we're pretty much a primary area because they're fortunate to have Sanderson Field that can land all kinds of planes and services and goods there in case something happens. So that makes us one of the prime locations for this training. So there will be a lot of military vehicles and helicopters and all kinds of other organizations in and out of there from the 7th through, I think, through the 10th or 11th. They still might be out there. So it's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
It's just a training exercise.
Yeah. What are you guys doing as part of this?
Well, we're part of that. Lieutenant Adams has been, we've been involved in it for almost 2 years in the planning process of it, and it's just about, for us, it's going to be about helping coordinate people in and out of the area, and how we're going to move people back and forth and something like that. If something like that happens, most of our people are going to be busy out on the street, but we'll have some people up at the emergency operations centers and checks the communication levels and those kind of things for everyone. So
sure. It's
a really important exercise. It really is.
When we talked with County Emergency Manager Ross McDowell last week, he was mentioning that one of the things is that the National Guard, the 92nd, I think, is going to be in town in the county, and one of the things they're doing is just learning the roads.
Yes.
Just understanding how to get from Mason to Grays Harbor or to Kitsap, like taking the back roads and things.
Yeah, the communication and transportation issues are huge in this. As you see by some of the maps you'll look at of what they expect may be bridges or transportation areas that may be knocked out, so you're going to have to look to alternative routes. A good example of that was during our floods a number of years ago in Tahuya, the number of places that we couldn't get to, and the military came in and threw some temporary bridges down and was able to access places. But those are all the things they're going to be looking for on a not only statewide, but all the way to California and north of us into Canada.
Wow.
It's a big area. It's because of the faults and those kind of things will be affected with during the earthquake, so it'll take out a lot of infrastructures.
So again, it is happening, and there's not really any opportunities for folks to see what's going on with this Cascadia drill, but it is happening, and just that's what's going on.
I think they're putting a lot of it on. I think by computer you can see some of the places that they anticipate as they show. Just as you think you have one thing figured out, what they kind of do is say, well, I'm sorry, that bridge is now gone. Now figure something else out.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a chess game a little bit for the people involved and what they think is going to happen. But I think you can follow some of that on the web pages.
Okay, great. What else you got?
Well, another issue that's come up in the last, actually has been the last few months, we've been working with a citizens group out on the south shore of the canal and through that Alderbrook area and basically from Alderbrook into Belfair. Traffic gets to be an issue for us this time of year, and people kind of forget that our population almost doubles as you hit spring and summertime, and that many of the people are not from our area. They have summer homes here, and traffic congestion along the South Shore has been really irritating to the full-time residents, and it's gotten progressively more difficult. We're going to be doing some more enforcement activities out there along with the State Patrol. We've been meeting with people out there. There's going to the State DOT has been looking at doing some traffic revisions as far as signages, and there have been some other crosswalks added, and to get people to slow down in that area. It's really difficult in there, and unfortunately, I know this kind of offends some people, but a lot of people come from out of the area and view this as just kind of some kind of a playground.
Sure.
And they are deeply offended when they get stopped out there and they're going well over the posted speed limit, and they're kind of losing track that there are residents that live along there. It's very difficult for a resident to pull on or off the highway out there from the side, really short driveway out. So we're trying to do a little more emphasis with the State Patrol on the state highway, but with us involved to slow that down. So please be reminded, traveling on South Shore, those are pulling boats and trailers. It's difficult through there. We understand that, but also passing, a 40 or 50 foot combined vehicle through there, and there's no passing zone or there's a curve coming up, it doesn't have very good results.
Right.
So we're going to be working on that area.
Doesn't look like there's much room for passing anywhere on that road.
No, there's not. There's only a few places, and most people know where they're at, and so they all try to get it at once, and it creates problems. And we're also looking at those areas that are congested where there's crossings to waterfront park properties where you've got the state park there, and we really caution people in there because kids aren't always watching. Whether there's a traffic signal or not, they bolt across the road, and we're really trying to make an effort to get people to slow down there.
We're talking with Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury, and on your Twitter page over the last 24 hours or so, they look like some crime stats are down. Carol, you have some of that?
Well, the Twitter, it said about 40% decrease in theft investigations and 50% decrease in alarm calls.
Yes, but look at the time spans on those. Look at the dates and times that those range from. And like anything else, we love to see the crime stats go down, but I also like to remind people, if you've had 0 arsons one year and the next year you have 1, that's 100% increase. Sure. So when you're looking at statistics, you've kind of got to be mindful of what they're measuring, how long they're measuring for, and how many stats they are. But we always like to see those numbers come down. I think there was I'm looking on there because I heard you talking about it this morning too. I think you're seeing there were some alarms, a number of alarm calls has went down. But if you add up those number of those alarms calls still to this day, we've been asking for years for an alarm policy to come out for our county. And the number of hours that it takes us a year to respond to false alarms is phenomenal. We did a survey on it a couple of years ago. It was almost 2 deputies a year we paid just to go to false alarms. By the time you look at the locations, how far, and some houses are over and over and over again, and we try to make it to all those, but it after you've been to the same house 13 times in a month, it becomes problematic, and if it's way out somewhere. So the numbers are down. That's good for us, and I hope that it stays that way. But just a small change can make a big difference in the percentage.
Can.
So you got to kind of be mindful. And you say 40%. If everything was down 40%, we'd be in great. But 40% from what?
Yeah.
But it's good news right now.
We were just reporting on some information from down in Coos Bay. They've had to get some rescuers out there from people that were sitting on a rock, and then the tide comes in, or people out and about playing in the water, and it's cold, and their system gets shocked, and that still happens around here. It's very cold.
That's an area that's really close to me. I spent many years on a dive team, on a rescue team for Thurston County, and it's really hard to explain to people what that cold water can do to you, no matter how great a swimmer you think you are. You can be out there in that water, and it takes an effect on you. And I've been to the bottom a number of times and retrieved bodies off the bottom, and it is something that sticks in your mind forever and you never forget. And so when I look out at people in the water, I see problems where most people see fun. But especially around here and in the Pacific Northwest, we have so many bodies of water. And even in the summertime, the water temperature changes don't change all that much. It's still cold, and we're concerned about that. And I ask people, please be mindful of putting your kids in the correct kind of life jackets, not just a life jacket, but one that fits appropriately, because you can put somebody in a life jacket and toss them out there, and they can slide right out of it.
Sure.
So it's putting people in the correct life jackets, but please wear those.
Is it the law to wear a life jacket on a boat?
Yes, and especially when you have the little ones. It's kind of like, I look at this as kind of like the seatbelt law, where years ago we finally got to where everything was a law. It should be a little bit of common sense to be actually outdo the law if people had common sense on that. But be mindful where you're at. Our team years ago, our rule for our team was if we were within 10 feet of any body of water for our team, we wore a life jacket, whether it was a swimming pool or a very, very shallow creek bed, because there's places in those creeks you step in and all of a sudden you're downstream. And so we like to see those life jackets are a very good thing to have on, especially for the little ones.
Sure. You guys, when you go out and your patrols on the water, I know a lot of it is with volunteers, and do you do a lot of ticketing early on in the season, or is it a lot of just situational awareness?
Well,
depends.
There was an educational process for a while. And I think we're beyond that for the most part on wearing life jackets and, and boating safety. And we're not going to, warn people for drinking on board a boat. It's just, those kind of things just aren't tolerable. And people know that being out there. Now, some safety violations, there might be a safety equipment or something that you can send somebody ashore to correct it or to get the appropriate equipment. And some of those things our folks will might bend a little bit on that or help you out with that. But there's some of those violations are pretty blatant out there, and it gets too dangerous not to enforce it and take action on that. So that'll be another one I had on my list here under boating safety. Another one that you're going to see coming out, and I don't know if the commission has had a public hearing on it yet, but a lot of recommendations have been made in our community. The wake surfing, and do you know what I'm talking about? The type of boat that you don't have to use a rope to surf off the back of it.
No.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't have to use a rope?
They're a special design boat that they put out a wake off the side, off the back of them, and so you can take off of the rope, and then you're surfing, you're free surfing with no rope, no hands, and you're surfing on the wake that the boat's creating. Well, those wakes or the wave that they create to wake surf off of are pretty significant.
Yeah.
And what happens is that wake dissipates once it hits the shore, and they're pretty good size. And we've had a lot of complaints, especially in our narrower bodies of water and narrower lakes, that those wakes hit the shore and they hit people's docks, and they're very disruptive.
Yeah.
And so there were some recommendations made to be going through if they're approved by the county or not. That's up to the county commission, but we made some recommendations on those about distances offshore that you can use those type of boats, those marine boats, because they can create havoc for people in like smaller watercraft and things like that. And we have a lot of people that come from out of the area, because in the bigger areas, again, they've already said they've limited that tremendously, and so they go to the areas that haven't, and then we end up with a larger percentage of people coming to our area. Now we've had to do the same thing.
Sure.
So will be kind of an educated process, I guess, sometimes depending on the attitude you're met with. But there are going to be new shoreline distances that we've recommended in the county. It's up to them to adopt them. But that would be a big difference for some of our bodies of water, our smaller lakes. Distances offshore in some of our lakes will be created that some lakes probably won't be able to use them, because distance from either side of the lake is going to be the middle, and it won't be far enough.
Right.
So.
Lastly, I think we got a new debut on the parade route of the Hood Canal rescue boat, looking pretty sharp there.
Yeah, it took us quite a while.
That came from Port Angeles?
Yeah, as you recall, initially we had another one that took our government officials a while to approve, so we lost it. Incidentally, I got a really nice note from Grace Harbor thanking us for that boat. So they sent me all kinds of neat things thanking us for that, for taking so long that they got it. And then we were able to find another one and be able to put that on the water, and it will be ready to go. It did go through the parade, but for us, it's another one of those things where the canal can get pretty rough.
Yeah.
And the type of boats that we had before, there's some types of weather you just can't make it out there in. This will be really, really helpful for us in the community. And the important part of that is being able to get out to those responses, because Coast Guard and some of the other, they're not going to be able to be right there all the time, although they will help as soon as we call, but they may be out quite a way. So that helps us to get our response time to get out there, and a more stable platform and easier to board other boats with it, the way it's set up.
Great.
How many boats do you have?
Well, I think this will put us at 3 again now.
Okay.
We were down to 2, but we had smaller ones, and we had made some requests for some other some boating equipment that didn't go through. But this is very important for the larger bodies of water for us.
Do you also use volunteers in this situation?
No, not really as much. I mean, we do have volunteers that are on the shore side that do a lot of boating checks and things for us, equipment checks and things like that. But out in the water, there's certain level of certifications that have to be made. There was an article, it was a really good article, and appreciate it, but just a little bit of understanding. It publishes in the paper, maybe it's on our website, that we have 11 boating officers. We do not have 11 boating officers. We have 11 people certified to be on a boat, which are all full-time deputies. We don't have additional people. So those officers, deputies that you see out on the boat, those are deputies that are normally on patrol. And so what they are, those are overtime details. They're coming out after their regular detail and going on board. But we have 11 people that are, I think we're right at 11 now, that are certified to operate those boats. And we choose to keep people that are certified to be on the water, have pretty good working knowledge of what they're doing out there on that, rather than putting volunteers out on the water with us. So it's 11 people in our agency that are certified to operate the boats, and we'll be doing some training with that new one, incidentally, because it's a whole bunch of new bells and whistles on that boat.
Sure.
Compared to a lot of others. Mason
County Sheriff Casey Salisbury in weekly at this time. Good to talk with you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And we'll talk next week.
Okay, take care.
7:58 at iFiber One News Radio.
ABC Entertainment News. Here's Jason Nathanson.
This is gonna be good.
Not exactly good for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.